Hi, everyone. Welcome to Relatively Sane. What a crazy time it is. Well, I am thinking about all of you and sending you love. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. Don't forget, I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. You'll get the podcast free, 2 a week. Not free, early. Jesus Christ, I knew I would fuck this up. You get them early. And also you get exclusive content. So go on my Patreon. You'll love it. Okay, great. Oh, it's so hard to promote myself, but I have to do it. This is what I have to do now. You know, I've been doing a lot of stuff online, which is great, like Q&As and some comedy. So I'm really enjoying that. And listen, things could be worse. I always try to stay grateful because things could be much worse. I mean, my father passed away, but besides that, things could be much worse. So many of you have been so supportive online, and I really appreciate it. I really do. I'm being strong and letting myself feel my feelings, and I'm binging a lot. I hope I don't blow up. I have to be honest with you. I don't think I will, but last night I ate so much because I was having feelings, and I got to tell you, I feel like shit today. So I know a lot of you understand this. I feel like maybe if I wear a trough, I've said this before, but if it has like carrots in it or greens, I just strap it around my chin. That'll be better because then I won't reach for the crap. Life is not easy, but we're going to get through this. And I am really looking forward to performing again in 2024. I really am. I love you all. I know you know that. And thank you again for your support. Follow me on social media. Follow Virtual Comedy Network. They have been creating so much incredible content for me. And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Relatively Sane. I am here with Barry Sonnenfeld. You are absolutely hysterical.
Thanks.
I was like, I didn't know, like, I'm very clueless. Even I've been a comic for 21 years and I've acted, but I never know I don't know anything. I'm like really just very self-absorbed. But I read all your stuff and I have never felt so similar to someone that I've interviewed on this podcast.
Really, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry about that.
I know it's horrible. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all negative, horrible stuff, but I can relate to you so much. And your book is so hysterically funny. I couldn't get enough of it. It's for everyone, excuse me. It's called Call Your Mother.
Barry Sonnenfeld, Call Your Mother.
Oh, okay. So Barry Sonnenfeld, Call Your Mother, which
Right.
is from an incredible story, which I would love you to explain to people what happened. Um, I'm so grateful that you came on my podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. We're here in Telluride, Colorado, where it's
Oh,
beautiful and the snow is melting, but we might get snow on Thursday. But yes, the name of the book is Barry Sonnenfeld, Call Your Mother, and it's based on a true story, which was early in the morning of January 29th, 1970. At 2:20 in the morning, and that's very important that it was 2:20, over the PA system at Madison Square Garden, 19,600 people, while Jimi Hendrix is warming up for the second time. Earlier, he had left the stage. He wasn't feeling the vibe. He was back a second time, and as he's about to hit the guitar strings, over the PA system comes the announcement, Barry Sonnenfeld, Call Your Mother. So several things happen. The first thing is I start to cry because I assume my father is dead,
right.
because why else could someone get through to anyone at the garden and convince them they had to page their son? Second of all, by standing up, I announced to my section that I am indeed Barry Sonnenfeld. So, of course, since it's the garden, very quickly there's the chant of Barry, Barry, which, cascades to the more expensive seats down below. Get to the payphone, call my mother. This is pre-cell phones or anything, or she might have texted me. And, hi, Mom, who's dead? Is Dad dead? I thought you were dead, Barry. Why would I be dead? Well, you said you'd be home at 2, and it's 2:20.
It's amazing.
Mom, did they tell you the concert was still going on? Well, yes, they did, but they couldn't find you, so I assumed you were dead.
That is, I relate to that so much because I'm 50. My mother calls me 14 times a day. Like, even during this whole pandemic, I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm okay.
Right.
So it made me laugh. I could not believe that happened to you.
Well, the good news for me is both of my parents are dead, so I no longer have that issue.
See,
but if they weren't dead, believe me, I'd be getting the calls from my mother 15 times a day if you're getting 14.
That is so, I love what you said in your book, because you said that your motto is it still to regret the past, fear the present, and dread the future?
Dread the future. Yeah.
The best quote I've ever heard in my life.
Well, thanks. Here's my philosophy, and I think you can embrace this philosophy. There's no upside in being an optimist. The secret to success and happiness, although happiness is in quotes, is only be a pessimist. If every time you get on an airplane, you turn to the person sitting next to you and say, this plane's going to crash, one of two things happen. You either, as the plane is nosediving to the ground, you get to elbow your seatmate and go, was I right or what?
Right.
Or the plane lands safely. Either way, it's a win.
That's very true. Now, you had an experience where you almost, and I know you hate to fly. Do you fly now? I mean, now with this going on, but do you still hate flying, like freak out from flying?
No, I have become a much better flyer due to my plane crash. In the book, I write about being in a plane crash in February of 1999. Sony had rented me a jet to fly from East Hampton to Van Nuys Airport. It was part of my overall deal with Sony Television. And it was a good deal. And but they were so angry at the deal that they used to rent the cheapest planes they could find, which is not so good, because I've always been afraid of flying until the plane crash. In fact, I used to say that whenever I get off an airplane, I view it as a failed suicide attempt.
I know, I love that.
So there I was, alone on the plane, pilot, co-pilot, flight attendant. We're about 15 minutes from Van Nuys Airport. The plane starts to nosedive, it shudders. I'm hearing claxons and beeps and pre-recorded warnings from the cockpit. And we're at like a 30-40 degree angle heading towards the earth. And the reason I realized that I'm afraid of dying in a plane is knowing I'm going to die, knowing that in 4 minutes I will be dead.
Mm-hmm.
So do you relive your life and think of all the little things that could have been different so you weren't on that plane at that moment? Do you think about all the people you love, all the things you did wrong? What would happen? Would you weep uncontrollably? Well, in my case, and this is why I'm now a better flyer, I put my feet on the seat in front of me. I'm alone on the plane. I cross my arms.
Oh my God.
And I try different line readings of, and now I die. So I go, and now I die. Then I try, and now I die. Then I try, and now I die. And finally, and now I die. So I've tried the emphasis on each syllable. And now we've come into Van Nuys, but we're way too far down the runway. The pilot makes a U-turn, and in an attempt to slow the plane down, because the reverse thrusters don't work, the pilot aims at, hits, and knocks over various parked airplanes. Just slow us down.
Insane. It's insane.
So every time we hit and bounce over a Cessna or a Piper Cub, I find new motivation for my phrase, and now I die. Now we're out of the airport. We're through a fence. We're in a parking lot. We're destroying parked cars. We destroy a Dodge Ram 3500 dually and come to a stop, lodged against a pine tree. Now, the pilot, co-pilot, and flight attendant can't see this, but I see that their desperate attempt to push on the door won't work because of the pine tree. I ironically, almost sardonically, say, are we at all worried about that? And I point to all the fluid coming out of the engine. The pilot says, "Oh my God," and runs past me. They all run past me. No one's giving me like, "Sir, please follow." They run past me. I calmly wait for advice until I realize I am alone on the airplane.
Crazy.
They have gone out through the back of the plane. They lowered the cargo door and they're fleeing. They're running as fast as they can away from me and the plane because they think the plane's going to explode. Eventually, and by the way, there's all the news copters of, since we're in Los Angeles, they're circling the plane and the pilot is ripping off her epaulets so she can't be viewed from above as a pilot. The fire department comes. All the Van Nuys fire department are yelling, "Get off the plane, jump, get off the plane." Unfortunately, A, my fear of heights is equal to my fear of flying. And B, they weren't specific. You got to be specific. You can't just say jump. So I say, "Who's going to catch me?" They go, "It doesn't matter. Get off the plane." And I say, "Well, it does matter." So you look around. You pick the guy with the biggest mustache because every fireman has mustaches.
Yeah.
You're catching me.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. Just get off the plane. So I hug him. I'm not that high off the ground, is it? I hug him. I swing my feet into his chest.
You were that low that you could just hug him and get down?
Yeah, I bent over. I hugged him.
Right.
I was 7 feet off the ground. But for me, that's an eternity. That's a lifetime of falling through the air to death. But it made me a better flyer because I now know what it's going to be like when I die in a plane crash.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. I'll be kind of calm. I'll try different readings of "And Now I Die," and then I'll die. So now I'm much calmer.
The funniest thing to me, I so understand it. And I read like a lot in your book I related to. I mean, so much of it, the Hebrew school, the mother who's, my mom's a therapist.
That's tough. That's tough.
I have a ton of material about it, but the fact that she would just make you feel guilty all the time and say, I'm going to kill all that stuff. I mean, you like, it's hard not to blame your parents for the neurosis and stuff you go through as an adult. But I know you say that that's one of your philosophies is to not blame your parents. But did you do a lot of work around that? Like it's
no. You mean like, have I spent years in therapy?
Yeah. Did you go to therapy for years or no?
No. When I was in my mid-20s, I saw a psychologist for a little while, and she was great because, it was the opposite of Freudian, where she would, I would say, I'd tell her a story, and she would say, "Well, Mr. Sonnenfeld, it seems to me you have several options. Should you think about what they are?" And I'd go, "Gusta, just tell me what to do." And she would say, all right, take your mother's brisket and throw it out when you get out of the apartment, but don't have a fight about the brisket. So she was great because there was she did all the work for me. And then I guess when I was in my 40s, I saw a psychologist for a little while, but truthfully, uh, I kind of embrace my neurosis. And I'll tell you the truth. I read this book by Michael Pollan called How to Change Your Mind, which is all about psychedelics and magic mushrooms and how it can really, really almost cure
Yeah.
everything.
A
And
lot
it's
of
a
people are
fantastic.
microdosing daily now. Do you know that?
That's right.
A lot of
Yeah, the
companies are doing it.
microdosing LSD. Yeah. But for me, I realized I don't want to become normal until I publish the book. Now that the book's out, maybe I'll seek out some psychedelics. But I've always been afraid of that kind of stuff. I don't know about you.
No, I can't do any of that. But I did mushrooms once in college, and I saw my sweaters flying out of my closet at me. It was the scariest thing. I was in a Jewish sorority, University of Maryland, and I almost had a nervous breakdown. I actually called my mother on shrooms and was freaking out. It's
How many sweaters did you own?
a ton. It went on for 6 hours. That doesn't stop. You can't stop it. It's horrible. I talk about it on stage. It's very scary. I mean, to not be able to stop something from happening. I still can't believe what you
Right.
did in that plane crash. It's the funny that you were reading lines. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, well, there's not much to do and you got some time, so you might as well try line readings.
Do you feel as neurotic as you used to, or do you think like getting a little older has calmed you down a bit?
Getting older, I just turned 67 on April Fools. Getting older has made me less angry.
Yes.
Less angry and less competitive. And it's funny because, I worked on Adam's Family Values, which I directed. I worked with Joan Cusack.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hired her to be in a series of unfortunate events and hadn't seen her in 30 years. And I said to Joan, I don't know about you, but I feel happy being older now. And she says, exactly. I'm no longer angry. I'm no longer competitive. I'm enjoying life so much more. So on the one hand, I'm getting older and I'm fearing, imminent death. But on the other hand, I'm less angry about it.
Well, you were probably fearing that death at 22 also. I mean, if you're anything like me, that
You're right. You're right. Okay. You're right. You caught me.
So you've done so many incredible projects, of course. And do you feel like you like fit in with the entertainment industry? Like you found your people kind of? Did you?
Yes and no. I mean, truthfully, I've never lived in Los Angeles. My wife and I we've rented 11 houses there, as, jobs required us to be in LA. But my feeling about LA is I love LA, great restaurants, nice weather. I have more friends in LA than any other place in the world. But if you're not working there, don't live there. The day you're done with your job, get out, because otherwise you're going to go to some restaurant and someone's going to say, you're retired, right? No, I'm not retired. I'm just not working at the moment. It's horrible.
Horrible.
But it's a great place to work. So, but no, I have a lot of friends, permanent friends that I met in the film business. Bo Welsh, the brilliant production designer, and his wife, Catherine O'Hara. Larry Kazin, who is my neighbor here in Telluride, I met in LA. So we have a lot of friends.
It's great.
But they're personal friends. They're not like, they're not friends that require working together to be friends. So
Right. And when you're working with people, you get so close with them and you think you're going to be best friends with them forever. And then you literally see them again. Hey, you don't even barely remember who they are. It's so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, some friends have become lifelong friends, but normally you have this incredibly close 9-month relationship. You have dinners with them on weekends. We have parties. We drink a lot. And then, the movie's over and it could be 5 years before you see them again.
You know, it was interesting to me that you grew up as like, this kid where your mom was sound very controlling and manipulative and, all that stuff, which I can completely relate to a lot of that. And then you have this job where you're in control and like, so, I mean, being a director is like,
Yeah.
I've noticed that I've worked with some huge directors and you have to have a specific kind of personality. So where do you think that came from? Like from your dad kind of stuff? Like,
Well, it was easy in that my life growing up was so not in control. I
right.
needed to control everything because my mother always seemed out of control. My dad wasn't around a lot because he was having various affairs and stuff. So for me, I needed to control everything because my mother was not there and seemed to be out of control. She wept every day.
Oh,
So
so hard to grow up with that. I can't, it's really,
yeah, but here I am talking to you. So,
you're talking
it's
to me and look what you've done in your life. It's unbelievable, but it is when a mother does that to a child, it makes it hard to not
yeah,
feel
but
that you have to fix it.
it taught me to try to be in control. So, and you're right, all directing is having opinions about everything. When the prop guy comes to you and says, "Do you want the red envelope or the green envelope?" They don't want you to say, "Oh, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You choose." You have to choose everything. You have to say the green one.
Mhm.
Then, of course, on the day of shooting, you forgot that you told the wardrobe person, put the actress in a green dress, and now you don't see the envelope because it's green on green. So you go to the prop guy and you say, "Hey, remember when I told you about the green envelope?" And he goes, "Yeah, I got the red one in the truck. Is that what you want?" "Yeah, that'd be great." So, but I always tell my daughter, who's 26, that she'd be a great director because she has opinions about everything. She's pushy. She's
Right.
self-confident. And
Yeah.
that's all anyone wants from a director is self-confidence and opinions.
Yeah, even if you're faking it, just fake the confidence. No,
That's right.
you know what you're talking about, even if you don't. It's so true. Where does she live? Does she live in LA?
She lives in LA. She's in Larchmont Village, which is right near Paramount, which is great because she can walk to when they're open restaurants. She's got a boyfriend who's also in the film business, and she's working at a management company. But I keep telling her she should become a director. So we'll see.
Oh, I'm sure she will. What was your favorite? I know these probably been asked this so many times, but because you've directed so many incredible things, I was curious, like what your favorite projects were. What's the projects that you had the most?
Weirdly, they were both in television. I loved doing Pushing Daisies. I directed the pilot with the showrunner and creator was Brian Fuller, who is a genius,
Mhm.
and I loved working with him, and I loved our cast. And then I did 3 years for Netflix, working in Vancouver on a series of unfortunate events,
Oh, that's
which
great.
were which were these books that I loved, written by Daniel Handler. And I became the showrunner. I was never a showrunner
Mhm.
before, and that's even more in charge. So I got to direct 40% of the episodes. I got to be the showrunner, and I loved Vancouver, loved the
Love
crew.
Vancouver. I just performed there like 2 months ago, and it was amazing. I love it there.
It's fantastic. It's really great. It's a small enough city so you can get around, but a big enough city so that there are good restaurants, and that's all you really need in life. So those two things were my two favorite things. I really liked in the film business. I really liked directing and producing Get Shorty because it took me 6 years to make, and no one
Wow.
wanted to make it. Yeah,
Really? I didn't even know that.
no one wanted to make it. There never had been a successful movie from an Elmore Leonard book, and no one wanted to make a movie about inside Hollywood.
Right.
And so everyone passed. Some studios passed more than once. You know, um, their CEO would be fired, a new one would come in. So Danny DeVito and I would bring it back to the new person, and everyone passed, and it took us 6 years to get it made.
That's
And
unbelievable.
everyone says, "Oh, that's not true. Everyone loves that movie. Everyone wanted to make it." Absolutely not.
Oh, I believe you completely. I love Danny. I worked with him on The Comedian with De Niro and Harvey Keitel, and
Right? Yeah.
I had an amazing experience because De Niro saw me perform, and Taylor Hackford was the director. And De
Right.
Niro hired me as his right-hand person just from seeing my stand-up. Yeah,
Really?
it was crazy. We just connected, and it was interesting because I really worked. It was my first time working on a movie, and just seeing the whole thing, and I saw what the director like. Just it was so interesting to see what kind of responsibility, and that everything is about you're doing everything. I mean, every single decision
That's right.
is being made by you. And I know this isn't what you had thought you were going to do. What did you think you were going to do with your life when you were a kid?
No idea. I mean, the two things I liked were I thought maybe I wanted to be an FM disc jockey. I mean, I'm older than you, but growing up in New York, the 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 FM disc jockeys on WNEW FM,
Mm-hmm.
Allison Steele, the Nightbird, Roscoe, Scott Muni, and before that on WABC AM there was Scott Muni, there was Dan Ingram. So I loved the idea of being a disc jockey, or WBAI, where I would like tell stories, but I never pursued it or anything. I wanted to be an architect, which is also very much a controlling kind of,
Mm-hmm.
this goes here and that goes there, but I didn't think I'd be good enough in math, so I didn't do that. So I went to NYU undergraduate school in political science because my mother said if I went away to sleepaway school, others call it college.
That's sleepaway camp. It's
No, exactly. Well,
great.
uh, she said she'd commit suicide, so I spent 3 years
Oh,
living at home, and then, and this was in the Bronx. NYU had a campus in the Bronx, and then they sold it, and I refused to go downtown. And NYU said, "Okay, go to any college in America you want, transfer the credits back to NYU for your senior year, and we'll give
wow.
you a degree." So I thought I can go away as a senior, and my mother will commit suicide. Two birds, one stone. So I went to Hampshire College in Amherst, Mass.
I know that. I know. I've performed there. I
Are
know
you
that. Story.
serious?
Yes, yes. I've done that school. I've done Amherst College, UMass. Yeah, Mount Holyoke.
Right.
All of them. It's a
Yeah.
great area.
It's a
Great.
great area.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm the only child who went away to college and ate better food from the Saga A food program than I was eating at home. So for me, Hampshire was great. And then I graduated with no idea what I wanted to do. I liked still photography. I didn't think I was good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a year living in a room in someone's house in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Isn't that amazing? You just end up in these places, and you're like,
I know.
how did that even happen?
How did that happen?
Yeah. Like who,
Yeah,
who
and
who was it? Who was this person?
a friend of mine who also graduated from college named Glenn Turner, and I thought we wanted to live near New York, and we looked at ads, and we saw that there was this 2 bedroom and bathroom, no kitchen privileges, upstairs in divorced woman's house in Teaneck.
So random.
So we took it. I drove my Saab 96 every day into Manhattan and worked at Frenchie's Color Lab making prints, and almost dying because the chemicals are very toxic. And then, literally for lack of anything better to do, my mother said, "You like to write, you like still photographs. Film is just a lot of still photographs put together with writing, which is, by the way, not true. And if you go to film school, graduate film school, your father and I will pay.
Mm-hmm.
Lie. So I applied to NYU. I brought my still photography portfolio. I got into the graduate program. And then my mother said, my mom was a pathological liar, by the way. She said, I never said we pay. We don't have any money.
That's
Look at
what
your
they do.
father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say I never said that. And
I
then
never said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you ended up going and you met.
It's a 3-year program.
Mhm.
And what you discover is that I discovered that I was a fairly good cameraman. You had to do everything at graduate film school at NYU.
Mhm.
You had to direct, edit, write. You had to work on other people's crews, and everyone wanted me as their cameraman because I ended up being good.
Great, yeah. Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members for supporting the podcast.
All right, hold up. Could you take a little off the P's? You're hitting them too hard. Not action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members for supporting the podcast.
Hold on. Now you're whispering Patreon. Is there a reason you're whispering?
Well, you said to take the
somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
You ready? Action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon member.
Now you got to pause.
For those of you who don't know, Patreon members, is that okay?
It was perfect. Why'd you stop?
Oh, okay. Patreon members.
Cut. Let's go back to the beginning.
Thank you
And action.
Thank you so much to all my Patreon members for supporting the podcast. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams where we talk more about...
All right, let's take it back to the beginning. That was perfect. Do it exactly like that.
I just did it well, though, but why are you starting over? Thank you so much to all of my patron...
Cut. Why are you screaming?
Because I'm just trying to get through this.
Action.
Thank you so much to all of
Action.
Thank you so much to all of my Patreon members. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast.
Perfect. Keep going.
There's so many P's.
Keep going.
Ad-free episodes.
You could cut this out, right?
For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams where we talk more about being relatively sane.
Hold up. Did we agree on monthly live streams?
Yes, you told me I should do them because it'll get more members.
I don't know how to do a monthly live stream.
Don't you just talk in your phone?
We'll figure it out. Come on, let's get through this. We have to go. We should speed this up.
All right. Thank you so much to all my Patreon members for supporting this podcast. For those of you who don't know, Patreon members get early access to the podcast, ad-free episodes, and access to monthly live streams. We don't know what that is, but whatever, where we talk about being relatively sane. If you want to join our fantastic community that is so corny, go to patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's Patreon.
I think you said patriot.com.
Go to patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. That's patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. Patreon.com/Jessica Kirson. Thanks again.
And cut. That's a wrap.
Ugh.
So when I got out of film school, and this is way pre-video, there were no video cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did something low budget, you were shooting it on 16 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought a used 16 millimeter camera thinking that if I owned a camera, I could call myself a cameraman without being a dilettante because I actually owned a camera.
Yeah.
And then, started to get jobs for Reeve teletape shooting, Talking Heads and Rabbi Gelman Productions who were, making industrials about cardboard box making machines. And
God, that is so first of all, Gelman is the name of my sister's, that's my sister's last name because her husband's name was Gelman.
Really?
But I love that it was a rap. I was also so interested in your Hebrew school stuff and all of it. It's so fascinating to me.
Do you embrace the Jewish religion, or are you a cultural Jew or a religious Jew?
No, I related to everything you said about that. So I grew up Reformed. I didn't grow up. I know your father was Orthodox. Right?
Yeah,
conservative.
Right.
Your mom grew up. One of them grew up Orthodox, right?
Dad was Orthodox. Mom was conservative.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't grow up Orthodox, but I grew up Reformed. So it was basically just who had the nicest clothes and who had the best car. And,
Right.
I had to go
Nice.
twice, Tuesdays and Thursdays every week. And I perform for Orthodox now, but they don't. I said, for people who constantly pray, you're the most miserable people I've ever, like, I thought if you pray, you'd be happier. They are the worst audience. I was supposed to do Passover shows in Florida. They take over the
Really?
whole resort. Yeah. And I'm married to a woman, and I never tell them, because then they'll be like, you should be with a man and suffer. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's right.
So they all think my husband is a mensch, like, because I'm away all the time on the road.
I will say they have really good Orthodox, like from Williamsburg,
Yeah.
really have great hats.
They have amazing hats. They're not staying apart right now, which is a big problem. They're not.
Of course, they're not staying apart
No.
because they're chosen.
It's so unbelievable to me. But tell people, if you don't mind, how you ended up having your bar mitzvah in a church. Like that was so, the whole thing to me.
Yeah, I have a philosophy, I'm sure you do too, which is the worse the experience, the better and the funnier the story.
Of course, yeah.
So, like, if you get a flat tire on the Long Island Expressway on Thanksgiving, Sunday night, you also want it to be raining, and you also don't want to have a spare tire.
And you
because
want
that makes, that's right. Right, because it makes the story that much better in retrospect. So for me, Hebrew school was horrible because I was a cultural Jew, I have Jewish attitudes towards life, death, I embrace the kunner, her totally. If anyone ever says, how great is this? I go, are you nuts? Don't say that out loud. Think it, don't say it. If you say it, God will strike us down to prove how wrong you are. In fact, I own 2 watches, and one of the watches, this one, is a Breitling Emergency, and this knob right here has a 6-foot antenna inside. And if you're ever like in an earthquake or get lost or something, you unleash the 6-foot antenna, and it sends out a signal on both to both all the local EMTs and to a NOAA satellite, right? And you'll be rescued. But the problem with the watch is you can never take it off, because if you take it off, God says, schmuck, Sonnenfeld took off the watch. Let's make his house collapse. So this watch is on 24 hours at a time, but I own other watches. So here's my Apple Watch.
Oh, you're incredible. I love that you have 2 watches on right now.
I have
so good.
Always.
Yeah. Really?
This watch will change. Sometimes it will be different watches, but this watch can never be taken off.
I can't take it. It's so funny to me. I love it. I really just love it. Yeah. So you went to Hebrew school, you hated it.
Well, yeah. So I hated Hebrew school because I didn't, also the Old Testament God is insecure. You can only pray to me, tests everyone, kill your son, is really mean, is not loving, is not nurturing. So how could you in any way want to embrace that God, in my opinion? I admit listen, I love Jews, although is your partner a Jew?
No,
there you go.
I talk about it on stage. My parents didn't care that I was marrying a woman. They cared that she's not Jewish. I swear to God. They were like, we love Danielle. She's beautiful. She's great. She's smart, but it really would be great if you would have met a nice, I'm like, I can't even, you can't make this shit up. That's
amazing.
Yeah.
No, and here's my philosophy. Jews should not marry Jews.
Really?
Jews are great. But if you marry a Jew, your partner becomes your mother.
That's true.
And very quickly they're saying, you're going to wear that tie? And then it's like, oh God, okay, what tie? Come on, let's go to the closet. No, I'm just saying, if you want to wear that tie, so you never want a Jew to marry a Jew. And also, I think the combination creates better offspring. My wife is a non-Jew from Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. We're from completely different. I mean, she's Irish and Italian, blue collar, cops and firemen from Queens. I'm from Short Hills, New Jersey. Like I grew up in South Orange, New Jersey. My dad lives in Short Hills. It is good that there's a difference, but I think they want you to marry another Jew so that you just have Jewish offspring. Isn't that the whole point? That
but that's a bad idea.
I know.
Jewish offspring can be very problematic. I know we're going to get in so much trouble for this.
No, this is nothing compared to what people talk about on the podcast. Trust me. It's true, though. It's an opinion. Yeah.
So there I am, not believing in the Old Testament God, having Hebrew school in the basement, windowless basement, where the rabbi smoked White Owl cigars, which stink. So I played hooky for 2 years, and then the rabbi, about 2 weeks before my bar mitzvah, called my father, said, Barry hasn't been here in 2 years. But of course, I'd been accepting my bar mitzvah payments, my money for Hebrew school. So my dad and I went to the rabbi. I recorded my Haftorah on my 3M Wallensack tape recorder. I memorized it by rote, but in the meantime, my temple, Beth Shalom, had been building a new temple, and the new temple was going to be ready on April 9th, but they sold the old temple on April 1st, which is my birthday, and my bar mitzvah was April 2nd. So we had no temple because the Orthodox temple didn't want me bar mitzvah there. So across the street from where we lived in Washington Heights, we had a church. So the rabbi talked to the minister or priest or whatever, and they said, yeah, sure, it's Saturday, it's not Sunday, so sure, he can be bar mitzvah there. So the rabbi and the cantor, the guy who plays his shofar,
yeah, of course,
hideously. There's never been a good shofar player ever. Horrible. Yeah. And I was a French horn player. I could have played the shofar. If only I had known, I could have been a cantor.
Don't you regret that you didn't become a cantor?
You know what? I really should try to seek out a chauffeur just to see if I could pull it off. But no, yeah, can you imagine? So anyway, they got some ladders, put burlap bags over all the crucifixes and images of Jesus.
So funny.
And I was bar mitzvahed in a church.
And how many guests were there? Like, were there a lot of people there?
Yeah, my parents were always very friendly. And there were probably 150, 200 people in the church. My dad was a salesman, so he had lots of friends. It brought everyone bread from Flakowitz, which was a bakery on Long Island. They made amazing raisin. Have you ever had bread from Flakowitz?
No, I never even heard of it. I love the name. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, no, they moved to Boca, but
shocking.
Shocking. They made a great raisin pumpernickel and a great corn rye bread that was so dense. It was amazing. Good. Yeah, they were good. Elephant ears.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah. Go to Boca. They're still there.
Have to talk about food. I perform. That's where I was performing. I used to go there every other week to South Florida to do the developments.
Really?
I say they're the most miserable looking people I've ever seen in my life. Like, they all have this face.
Yeah. No, exactly.
It's gorgeous outside. It's beautiful. Weather. It's so not inspiring to look at all those faces.
But do they laugh at themselves except for the
Yes,
Orthodox
that's
ones?
what I do. I bust on the audience, and I could do that
Yeah,
for an hour, and they crack up. That's the good thing, you know. At least
yeah,
they laugh at themselves.
yeah.
It's really true. When you
Not
say
the Orthodox.
no, not the Orthodox don't laugh at anything. They're
No.
also I'm a woman, so I'm not supposed to be performing. I'm supposed to
Oh,
be taking care of my kids and cleaning and cooking and
right.
so but you said that I want to hear about your experience with Robin Williams because he was my idol. He
Mm.
was my idol. And I really quick before you say it, people say to me, what's the best thing you've done? I've done the Tonight Show 3 times. I've done a lot of TV and movie. The biggest thing that ever happened to me was him seeing me and heckling me during my performance and saying, "You're brilliant. You're a star. You're a star." And then he hugged me after and told me to never stop doing what I'm doing. And it was the biggest thing that ever happened to me because I adored him. What was your experience with him?
Well, you should adore him. He was a lovely person. He was incredibly well read.
Mm-hmm.
He knew everything about astronomy. He knew more about local politics. We did a movie together called RV in Vancouver 12 years ago. Every night when he was done, he would go to a local Vancouver club and know more about every
Wow.
prime minister, every cab driver, he was truly brilliant. I called him the jazz musician of comedy. He
Yes.
was like Jonathan Winters in that you could give him a stick
Yep.
and say, do an hour, and he could do an hour. In fact, he was so good as a mimic that you couldn't ask him to do one person. You have to give him two people. You'd have to say Ethel Merman imitating LBJ or Bill Clinton imitating Obama. You couldn't just say do Obama, do Clinton, because
Yeah.
that was too easy for him. And by the way, his LBJ imitating Ethel Merman was different than his Ethel Merman imitating LBJ. I mean, the man was.
That is unbelievable.
Here were the issues, because he was truly, truly, truly a lovely man,
Mm-hmm.
very sensitive, incredibly gifted, very smart, and alone. Also, he embraced two of the comedy big three. Every comedian, every successful comedian has too many cars,
Mm-hmm.
too many fountain pens, and and too many watches. It's always watches, cars, and
Wow.
fountain pens.
Mm-hmm.
Robin was fountain pens, watches, but bikes. He had very high-end bicycles, right? The problem with Robin was two things. One is sitting alone at dinner. You've never had more fun. It was relaxed. It was great. You would learn more about astronomy and the Kabbalah than you ever cared to, but fascinating. And then the waiter came. So now you've got three people and it's showtime. And he couldn't not perform.
Yeah.
And it was sad.
Yeah.
When Sweetie and I call my wife Sweetie,
I love that.
we went to the restaurant Chin Chin that I had been to a decade earlier
Mm-hmm.
with Robin in Vancouver. And the manager came up to me and said, "Sir, I saw your name on the reservation. I was off today, but I came in because a decade ago, I was your waiter when you were having dinner with Robin Williams." And
Wow.
he said, "I had PSD for about 2 years because he took over the restaurant. Robin sat at other people's tables, sat on their lap. He
So
just
interesting.
he just needed to be loved." And the other issue is that we really didn't get along that well because, as you and I have already discussed, directing is all about control and decision making, and
Mm-hmm.
Robin is always about improv and jazz. And
Right.
I'm not an improv guy.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes so much sense.
And he was really good, but it was just not the right fit. I shouldn't have been his director.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved him as a person and didn't like working with him as an actor. But he was profoundly talented.
That makes so much sense to me because he
Yeah,
did that at the Comedy Cellar too. Like when the comics are sitting around the Comedy Cellar, there's a table where we all sit in New York City. We're not on a lot. Like it's literally like we're just eating dinner and we're
right.
friends and it's family and no one else is allowed to sit there. It's a whole shtick, you know. But when he would sit there, it was like there was a whole show going on, and it was interesting to me because no one does that. You know, no one would do that.
It's also a little exhausting, don't you
Oh,
find?
of course. Are you kidding? First of all, I am so miserable off stage. Like, I love when people think comedians are all on like it's very rare. I mean, he was a rare person.
Yeah,
Very few people do that. And it is exhausting. It
yeah,
makes my head spin, you know, when I'm
yeah,
around
yeah.
and focus. Who was your favorite? I mean, it's so hard because you've worked with so many people, but who are some of your favorite actors that you've worked with that you
Well,
love?
I loved working with Will Smith. We did 4 movies together. He's
Yeah.
really easy to get along with. He's karmically extraordinary. You
Hmm.
know, stages are 200 feet long. I could be at one end. Will Smith could walk in silently at the other end, and karmically, you felt this weird energy. He has just this amazing uh, karmic ability. I think he could have been a great politician that way.
Hmm.
Um,
Because
I
you had
loved
a
working. Yeah,
story with him about him
sorry.
dying. Yeah, I read about the whole story when you worked with him.
Oh, there are so many stories that aren't in that book. You know, he broke my hand. He broke my uh, rotator cuff. I had to have surgery for that. I had to have hand surgery, but yeah, no, Will was great. You know, he loved me, I loved him, and when I thought Sweetie was dying, and of course she wasn't dying,
That's
she
right.
was
That's the whole
dizzy.
story I read. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, he was weeping right there with me, unbelievably, hysterically sobbing, until I realized that Sweetie probably wasn't dying, and it was probably just that I was hungry, which made me.
That's when I laughed. I loved when you said that.
Well, you know what happens when you're hungry. Terrible things happen.
Are you kidding? It's like you're gonna die. Yeah, of course. It's a nightmare.
You're mean to people.
Yeah.
You're short tempered, and then you eat, and then suddenly it's like, okay, where were we? You know.
That's like Yom Kippur was, oh boy, that's a rough day.
All right. Let me ask you a question. There's 2 kinds of Jews. There's a kind of Jew that breaks fast with a big meal, and then there's a kind that breaks fast with like matzah brie or matzah broken up into a cup of
No,
coffee.
no, we go all out. There's bagels, tuna. Everyone's enraged. Everyone their breath smell. It's like it's no one even knows why they're fasting, but you have to do
Right.
it. It's the only day you go to temple. And it's just about looking at other people and you know what they have.
Talking.
You ravage. I didn't even care if my whole family died. I was like, just get me to the tuna.
That's
That's,
right.
but we eat a
Well,
lot very fast.
for us, it was leftover brisket. But yeah, no, no. But there are those Jews that think, oh, my stomach is too sensitive because
Oh
it
no,
hasn't eaten in.
yeah.
But there are those Jews.
Oh, of course. I mean, they're like that
Yeah.
constantly. Yeah. I mean, I
Right.
I love food. I
Yeah.
I could never just break it with the matzo brie.
No, no. I didn't love food until I met Sweetie, or until I went to Hampshire College and learned that there was actually good food to be had at college, which
At
says
college
so
in a
much.
dorm in a which is everyone says is disgusting. So your mother was a horrible cook.
Yeah. No,
Horrible.
she was bad, but mainly I ate. I cooked my own Swanson TV dinners. I always had 2 every night.
That too. Very much so. Yep.
My favorites were the fried shrimp and the white meat turkey, not
I
the
love
regular
the
turkey.
turkey. The turkey was so good. I was
Stuffing,
alone a lot
peas.
too. Yeah, I was alone a lot. My dad was out all the time, and my mom was seeing clients and helping the world. She was an est. Now I know you know what est is. My mother was a
Yeah,
seminar leader.
sure.
My mother, yep. So I went to est at 10 years old. and I wasn't talking, and the leader came over. It was for 10-year-old. Can you believe that? It was for kids.
No.
And handed me a microphone and said, "You're not speaking, tell us something." I guess I told them my parents fought all the time. They hated each other. And the next thing you know, I'm walking on a stage, I'll never forget it, with a huge sign around my neck that said victim.
No.
Isn't that a great story?
But wait, what kind of, was she an actual psychiatrist or a psychologist?
She still has clients. She saw clients in the basement of our house my whole life.
But could she prescribe medication, or was she
I wish she could. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, she's just a therapist, sees clients, but she was very into est, and she wasn't around a lot. So I used to just find things to eat in the house. So when you were talking about, when you wrote about that, I related to that so much. What made you, I'm sure part of the reason you wrote this book was because everyone has told you how funny you are and that these stories are incredible. I mean, these stories are, that's why I want everyone to read this book, because these are stories you never hear. Like, they are something you would see in a TV show or a movie, your stories.
Well, it's funny because Rob Reiner and I are in negotiation with Warner Brothers Television to see if they want to option the book, actually.
They have to. I was, the second I started, I was like, this has to be a movie. This is hysterical. And
well, thanks.
Okay,
all right, so here's what happened, and it involves a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
My next door neighbor here in Telluride is Jerry Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry comes up for a couple weeks a year with his wife and kids over Christmas, New Year's. They go skiing, and Sweetie and I have a really good screening room. We have a great screening room, one of the best there is. And we get all the screeners over the holidays from, because I'm in the academy and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So Jerry and Jessica and the kids would come over, and, we'd watch a movie, and they would hear various stories. And most of my stories were about how horrible it is to work in the film business, because even though I'm supposed to be in control, there are producers, there are studio executives, they're all afraid. Will Smith used to always say on Men in Black 3, don't give Barry the responsibility without giving him the power to do his best work.
That's so true. Oh my God, that is so true in this business. Yeah.
So because of studio executives and because of producers, Jerry would hear that I had all the responsibility, but not any of the power to execute it.
Mm-hmm.
So one Christmas day, Jerry came up to the house and said, "You know what? You should really do stand up. You would have a great time."
You would.
I don't think I would.
Yeah.
Well,
you're so connected to stuff a stand-up would say. But anyway, yeah.
But here's the problem. I don't want to be rejected. I don't want people not to laugh. I don't want to. So Jerry said, you would love it because you're totally in control. You succeed or fail based on your own abilities. No one's told you to tell that joke. Mm-hmm. So that in success, it's yours. In failure, it's yours, but there's no one else. So I said to Jerry, aren't I like way too old to do stand-up? And Jerry said, oh yeah, you're way too old. You won't do, you won't you won't make any money doing it, but you might have fun. So I thought about it, and I decided the closest I could come to doing stand-up without having that immediate rejection would be to write my memoir. So this is my version of a stand-up routine.
That's interesting. I love that so much, because this book is so funny. I mean, I get books, I get materials, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But this is so, I'm telling you, like the second I started talking to you, I'm like, I relate to so much of this. I understand it. It's you're very dark in the way that way that you think and write, and it is that Jewish sense of humor. I mean, it's just so funny. And and when I started reading it, I was like, this is a movie. Like, that is the first thing I thought. was this should be the
Well,
movie. I pictured the
well,
whole thing.
well, Rob and I are thinking that it's a streaming 1 hour or a half-hour show because I have so
Yeah.
many stories, and the guy who I want to play sort of middle-aged me,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm vain, so I want someone better looking than me. I want Max. I want Max Greenfield to
Yeah.
play middle-aged Barry because he's good looking, he's charming, he's neurotic, he can talk fast. I love him. So I want Max to play Barry on Barry Sonnenfeld, Call Your Mother.
I just think I honestly think it would be such a huge hit. I really, I mean, I love it. I love all the stories. I would suggest everyone read this book. I mean, a lot of comics listen to this podcast also, and you're gonna laugh so hard when you read this book and hear these stories. It's
Well,
just,
you're lovely. Thank you.
I'm not even just like, I know, because you don't know me, I don't know you, but I don't say that unless I really think it. It's like, it's interesting. I don't get, I'm very real that way. I think that's why De Niro liked working with me, because it didn't faze me that I was working with him. I was just like, whatever,
Right.
another person. But when someone it's rare for a comic to laugh, like how Jerry saw how funny your stories were. It's rare for us because we're so,
yeah.
But it's hysterical, and I really want people to read it. I want it to become a show. I like, I really hope you make this into a show, because it is what I saw. I just saw it immediately. Would you have flashbacks to you as a kid? Yeah.
There would be multiple Barrys.
Yeah.
Because I think the whole show is how the past informs the present. So you want to know why I wear 2 watches, I have 3 phones, I have a bag of fountain pen, and an entire, like, I lug around like 20 or 30 chargers with me wherever I go. It's because as a youth, I had no electricity, no food, no phone service. We had to hide from Lou the butcher whenever we owed him money. So now I'm a hoarder.
I know, it shapes you. It does. It completely shapes you into I get it. Are those the only things you hoard? My mom's a food hoarder. Like, she doesn't throw food out. It's crazy.
Oh, listen. Well, no. I've been married to Sweetie for 31 years this April. I would throw all the food away. I didn't believe in leftovers. I had a shirt from the time I was 16 years old that I had made that said, mayonnaise kills. And on the back it said, kosher salt heals, because mayonnaise will kill you. Like if I see my wife leave mayonnaise in the sun for 1 second, it goes in the garbage. So I don't hoard food, but I hoard boxes. If I get a good box from Amazon and it feels like the right shape, because maybe someday I'll be packing and need a box. I have a wall of empty boxes.
That is you must be going crazy now. Are you getting a lot of I mean, you must be in heaven.
You bet. I've got, my wall is expanding.
I love that you have boxes. Like, no one would ever think that.
No, I don't. Listen, I discriminate. I don't save every
It has to be a good one. Yeah.
It's got to be a good right size. Oh, wait, this looks perfect for my match strikers. I have those porcelain match Boy, I bet I could fit 8 of those, even with okay, I'm going to save that box. And Sweetie will say, where are we moving? Well, someday we're going to move.
Yeah. Or someone's going to have to move our stuff. So we might just have the boxes around.
That's right.
That's so funny. I love it. I really love it. I loved talking to you, Barry. You are hysterical and so down to earth. I mean, you've done unbelievable things in your life, but I just love talking to someone who's just, no one would ever even know, you know?
Well, I think that we would, if we were ever together, we'd either really like each other or find each other impossible. But I think we'd like each other.
No, we would like each other. I'm very easy. I'm not, you know, I'm pretty easy, and I find you hysterical, and I am so grateful that you wrote this book. Everyone needs to really read it, especially now. It's so funny and brilliant, and people are just, you're sitting home doing nothing, most of you that are listening to this. So read this book.
Or if you can't get a copy because Amazon is delaying any
Oh, yeah.
non-toilet paper shipping, you can also download it on Kindle or buy it on audible.com and listen to my beautiful Washington Heights voice read it.
I think that's the best way of hearing. Honestly, I would have loved to hear you read it. I that's how you guys should do it, because you're,
well, in any case.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for doing my podcast.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, and I will be in touch. But good luck with everything. Keep saving those Amazon boxes. You probably have a lot coming. Better quality.